So you want to know more about 21 Pilots? I wasn't
Probably.
there. I thought it was going to be more, but I can understand it. It was a good
funny,
one, but interesting at the same time. I highly recommend Futurama. Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Classy Nerd Talk. In the last episode we're going to make of 2016. So I'm going to do a compilation video of the year 2016, the worst, the best of movies, video games, deaths, artists, and a couple other things that I've brought up a couple times. Okay, so let's get started here. I'm going to open up my browser here, and let's look. Okay, so I'm going to have to say my favorite movies this year has to be, there's a lot of great movies this year, and I would have to put some of the movies that are up on there is probably Civil War, Captain America Civil War by Marvel and Disney Studios. I'll have to say Rogue One, Star Wars is another good one of mine. And Deadpool, of course, Deadpool. Deadpool was actually a very big shocker to a lot of people just because how great it was. 10 Cloverfield Lane, fantastic movie. It made up for the last Cloverfield movie, in my opinion. I liked Star Trek Beyond. That was a great movie this year. Also, too, I thought Doctor Strange was very surprising, good. I would have to say some other movies that really were good was Pete's Dragon was a really good movie. Really didn't change too much the original Pete's Dragon. A couple other good movies I would have to say would probably be that's on that list is probably Kubo and the Two Strings. That was a really big shocker of a movie. That was well done as an animated movie. All right, so I would think we should talk a little bit about that. So Captain America Civil War. If you like the Marvel movies, I highly recommend Captain America Civil War. It's up there next to one of my other favorite Captain America Civil War Captain America movies is Captain America Winter Soldier. Captain America Winter Soldier was written and directed by the Russo brothers, and they also written and direct Civil War. And I'm not going to go into too many details, but what it is it's just, it's a well drawn out story, great plot twist. The movie's well done, especially with a bunch of characters. A lot of Marvel superheroes are in it, and the characters are done justice. All right, so moving on, Deadpool. Deadpool was a huge surprise because, okay, so 20th Century Marvel has the rights for Deadpool, like they made Deadpool, but they don't have the movie rights for Deadpool. So 20th Century Fox has the right to Deadpool, and a lot of things that 20th Century Fox has done has like tanked. Fantastic Four, Wolverine Origins, Wolverine, some of the X-Men films. There's been some pretty bad films. So, beyond that, Deadpool came out starring Ryan Reynolds as Wade Wilson, the Merc with the Mouth, and it also had T.J. Miller and a couple other stars in it. But it was really surprising. It was one of the first, not scared movies in a while to be rated R. The first rated R movie I remember that's a superhero is actually Blade. A lot of people don't remember that, but they always are like, oh, well, Deadpool now is the highest grossing rated R movie of all time. Which it deserves it. I think it was funny, a blast. It's kind of crude humor and very violent. So if you didn't like that, if you don't like that kind of humor, I don't recommend it. The action was top notch. The writing was. It was a standard story, so I can't really say that the story really was great. It was just an story, but the Deadpool character made up for the rest of that story. All right, so moving on, I would have to say Rogue One, a Star Wars story. If you don't know what Rogue One is uh, like a movie in between 3 and 4, and it's about the people that got the plans to Princess Leia about Death Star, and it's a really fun, quirky movie. I actually like the director that directed this. He directed also the Godzilla film that came out last year. That was really good. And I think this movie was really good. It doesn't really have a lot of Jedi stuff. There's, some like hints and some Easter eggs from the original Star Wars. But I like how the movie was filmed, and I really like the general story that went around it to figure out how these Death Stars got planned. Was it necessary? Not really, but it was a decent movie. So, and then Disney does, I think that they have a contract that they do a movie every year with Star Wars. The next one, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Oh my gosh, this really surprised me. So when I watched the first Cloverfield, I was like, I don't know. This movie's all right, but I wouldn't put it up like to get in our movie. Um, but this time, I was really shocked. Okay, so the only real draw to this movie that I really wanted to go watch it was actually John Goodman. John Goodman is like one of my favorite actors. When I see him in a film, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a decent film if John Goodman's in it. I haven't really seen too many movies with him, in it that's bad. Um, but what it plays is it has him and the girl that played Ramona Flowers from Scott Pilgrim versus the World get stuck in. She gets into an accident and she wakes up in a bunker, and come to find out that there's been like an attack on America or the Earth, and they're stuck in this bunker with this other person, and it's pretty much a thriller, in my opinion. It's like this huge thriller. And if you haven't watched the original Cloverfield, so the ending kind of will surprise you if you've never watched the original Cloverfield. But I like the action. The story's really in depth. The characters are great. The actors are really good in what they do. And some of the twists, you think that they're going to be this twist that you're thinking of, and it actually isn't. It's actually another twist, but it was good. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to have to say Star Trek Beyond. Star Trek Beyond was actually a very fresh breath of air to me, in my opinion. Simon Pegg wrote this with another person, and it kind of, as a Star Trek fan, it kind of brought more, it was more true to the Star Trek fandom and lore than the last two movies, in my opinion. The action was good. The story was great, by the way, in my opinion. And I think this is the movie that's going to lead Star Trek into the Star Trek we love. So moving on, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange starring Benedict Cumberbatch. It's really hard to say the name, say that three times. Benedict Cumberbatch, Benedict Cumberbatch, Benedict Cumberbatch. Okay, so Benedict Cumberbatch plays a doctor, like a surgeon, a very qualified surgeon that actually something horribly happens to him and his hands become, unusable anymore. And if you're a surgeon, you know that like, you have to have your hands. And uh, and he ends up going to China, and then comes to find out that there's ways to learn magic. This is a Marvel movie, so it's going to add on to the Avengers and Infinite Wars later on in next year, and all the other Marvel movies that are coming out. Doctor Strange is going to be in those movies. I really liked the visual effects of this movie. I really did. I liked the story. The pacing was all right. It just sometimes you just felt like it was just there and it wasn't really moving forward. But overall, I liked Doctor Strange this year, so it was really good in my opinion. Next movie, Pete's Dragon. Pete's Dragon was actually, it's a remake of the original Pete's Dragon that was from the 1960s, 70s, or 80s. I forget what year Pete's Dragon, the original, was, but it was an animated cartoon that Disney did, and they decided to make their movies like into like a real-time movie. Disney's been doing this lately. They did it with Cinderella, they did it with Beauty and the Beast, now they did it with Pete's Dragon. And then I forget what other movie they did that was in real time. Totally went blank. But they're in Maleficent and a couple other ones. Like they're doing them like for live action. So overall, it was a decent story, decent Disney movie. But Disney really doesn't fail you on those kind of movies. They kind of they do really well in their production, and they really think it through because they don't want to ruin one movie. Excuse me. Okay, so the next movie I saw that I thought was a great movie, I remember, was Kubo and the Two Strings. Now this was, wow. This was just I would have to say it's a to hit out of nowhere. Like I just couldn't believe how great this movie was, how the animation worked. Also, how Matthew McConaughey was in the movie that I really liked. I was like, wow, Matthew McConaughey, he's like the hate love relationship I have kind of with Matt Damon. But actually, in all reality, I actually like Matthew McConaughey more after I watched True Detective. So, his hate has like brought down with me. I'm starting to like him. Kubo and the Two Strings is like an anime movie. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's just surprising. So if you're looking in for like an anime movie, I highly recommend Kubo and the Two Strings. Okay, so moving on. disappointing movies this year. I'm not talking about terrible movies. I'm talking about very disappointing movies that I thought were going to be good movies and they turned out to be junk. Um, and I think the first movie I have to put up there, like the number one movie that I thought was going to be good, was probably Suicide Squad. Uh, I just don't get it. Okay, so Suicide Squad is a movie about the Joker, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and all them from the Marvel, from the DC, sorry, excuse me, DC villain trio, and it was all right. Like the characters were good in the movie, but the story overall it felt chopped, rushed, and it just felt generic. Like it didn't want to be its own thing. It kind of was silly, in my opinion. Some people loved it. You know, that's great. If they love it, that's great. But the thing is I don't think that it was worthy of any other superhero movie I've seen so far. So hopefully that moves forward and DC can get on track. The other disappointing movie this year is probably Batman vs Superman. Batman vs Superman was the biggest load of crap I saw this year next to Suicide Squad, because in all reality, uh, spoiler alert, there is a plot twist that I hated so much, and that was the reason why Batman and Superman stopped fighting in this film is because their mother's same name is Martha. Martha Wayne, Martha Kent. And they stop fighting, and it is the most stupidest, corniest thing ever. There's a lot of parts of the movie where the characters they don't really make great decisions, and it just looks stupid on screen. Especially the part with Lois Lane and the kryptonite spear, and she throws it in the water, and then 5 minutes later she's got to go back. Pretty much that was just filler to write in so that they could keep the movie going. Um, and I would have to say the other disappointing movies I didn't like this year. uh, you know, some terrible movies that I didn't like, but I still watched them, was Ghostbusters. I don't even want to get started on it. Ghostbusters was a terrible movie. It's actually the biggest movie I think this year that's lost so much money. I think it was like $90 million after they did that. They've lost. So, it was a formula that was perfect, and you messed it up by switching genders. And I think it really hurt the fans that you switched them like that. I understand you want, like, diversity in movies and stuff, but I don't think that was a good characters, and especially the same, like, women comedians that I really don't enjoy. Now, Kristen Wiig, I really like Kristen Wiig, but Melissa McCarthy, I don't really like her. I respect her though as like a slapstick comedy person, and I liked her in Bridesmaids. But this movie was just meant to be corny, and I knew it was, and it just didn't make sense. So I don't recommend Ghostbusters. Uh, One of the other disappointing movies is probably X-Men Apocalypse. X-Men Apocalypse, after Future Days of Past came out, I was like, man, that was the best X-Men movie I've seen in a long time. And I was like, probably the best one I like. And then Apocalypse comes out, and I was like so excited for it. I watched it. It's all right, but still not as good as I thought it would be. I really didn't like Apocalypse in this movie. He looked like he was just Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers movie. If you ever watched the Power Rangers movie, his plot was all right, and the story was all right. It just was kind of silly in how they put it together, and the flow of the movie was really really weird. So I don't highly recommend this movie. The other one is The Legend of Tarzan. The Legend of Tarzan, oh my gosh, whoever decided to make this movie, like, I've been waiting for a Tarzan movie, like a real live action one, that would be great. And this is not the one you want. This one was crap. It was terrible. Highly don't recommend watching it. I don't even want to talk about it, how terrible it is. Another, two more disappointing movies, Warcraft. Now, I'm not going to say it didn't make money, because in all reality, it sucked here in America, but China ate it up and Japan ate it up because they like those movies. In all reality, I just believe that game, if you don't know your history about movies and video games, is if anyone's ever tried to adapt a video game into a movie, it's been utter crap. Like we had Super Mario Brothers, Night, House of the Dead, Resident Evils, you know, but Warcraft was one of the movies that people believe that was going to stop the drought of this movie, and it really didn't. And the reason why I think it failed, in my opinion, was because you took a huge world like Warcraft and you like summed it down to this small story, and it just didn't work on the screen. So they relied on the story, and people just thought it was a mediocre story. They really didn't care too much for it. So, you know, But China did and Japan did. So if they make their money, they're great. Because Michael Bay has made Transformer films and they're terrible here, but the Chinese market loves those giant robots. Okay, so the last movie. Oh, so I watched this movie like a week ago, and I'm a huge fan of the video game, and it came out, and it was just a steaming pile of crap. And that is Assassin's Creed the movie. Assassin's Creed the movie was one of the worst movies I've seen this year, next to Superman versus Batman and Suicide Squad. The reason why is because when he goes in the Animus and goes back in time to figure out his ancestors, um, it's really cool. The action and the dialogue back then, like in the back then, like back during the Spanish Inquisition, was a really really good part of the movie. But then they bring him back to like modern day, and everything that was going on in modern day, man, it was boring. Like I was like, oh my gosh, dude, just put him back in the Animus. This would make a great movie. And I relied on Michael Fassbender to be that character that would be great. He plays a great character. It's just that movie sucks. Like the pacing and the action that was involved in the modern day was so bad, and they wanted to keep it where they were flashing back and forth modern day, boom, 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 and it just didn't work. I think they could have relied less on the Animus modern day and more of the back then day, and make a decent film on that, and then build on that story. That's the thing. People wanted to see that action from back then and give them that action, and then the second movie work on the story more often. So those were the most disappointing movies this year, in my opinion. Uh, Best new show this year. Okay, so there's a show that has been standing out lately. The two best new shows that I see this year that are really good is number one is Westworld. Westworld is an HBO series about where these people pay to go on vacation to a world where the Wild Wild West is, and they pay like a ridiculous amount. I think it was like $40,000 to pay. And these robots, they can do whatever they want, live their life however they want to live it within those vacation times that they paid. And it was based off of the movie back in the 70s called Westworld with Yul Brynner. But the series is really well put together. Anthony Hopkins is in it for the first season, and the story and the plot twist and everything that's driving it to be, a series. I was really shocked how great it was. And a lot of people at work was like, "Oh my gosh, this is really good. I'm really liking this show." So it was great, great. So, if you're looking for a new show, more sci-fi-ish about robots and stuff, I highly recommend Westworld. Second show this year that's new and I kind of like, but I've been a huge fan of, is Preacher. Preacher's an AMC series that was adapted from the comic books that Garth Ennis. Garth Ennis. I always mess up Dennis with Garth. Garth Ennis made these comics about a preacher that from Texas that gets the power of God's voice, and he controls like these people, manipulates them with the voice, and he becomes a superpower. There's also a Irish vampire involved, and his hot girlfriend Tulip. And the thing is the first season is all right, but it's not adapted really good to the comics, but it's pretty well adapted. But the show is written and directed by Seth Rogen, and Seth Rogen hasn't let me down too much. Now, he's let me down a couple times this year, kind of the weirdest movies I've seen, Sausage Party. Sausage Party was a decent movie until the last 5 minutes, until it got ridiculous. And, lucky I didn't have a child there or my girlfriend, but that is a rated R film. So, but, my girlfriend or my mom and dad, that would have been terrible. But I will have to say that it's really, really well done. The guy that plays Jesse, I forget his name. The guy that plays Cassidy is actually a really, really well picked cast for this show. Funny show, but it's more of a dark comedy. So if you're not into dark comedy, I don't recommend it. But if you are, I recommend it. It's on AMC. It's also been renewed. Both of those shows have been renewed for new seasons. Westworld's new season should be coming out in 2018, they said, and Preacher should be coming out this year, 2017. So, moving on past that, I'm going to have to say best returning show. Okay, so the best season next year. So I would have to, put it up with Shameless. Shameless season 8 was fantastic. The ending of season 8 is a very, very emotional season. Very emotional. Uh, you know, very, very driven. Fiona, Frank Gallagher. This show has William H. Macy in it. I also did a review on it on my channel. If you want to look that up, it says what's on Netflix, and you'll see the Shameless thing. Just watch it. I do a review on Shameless. Um, then um, I would have to say Ash vs. Evil Dead 2. Ash vs. Evil Dead, I love the first season. It was really good. So if you ever watched Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2 or even the remake, but you didn't really get to see Bruce Campbell in the remake. There was only like a last part of it, like after the credits that changed the movie. But the movie is about a guy that goes to a cabin a long time ago, and they read this book called the Necronomicon, and ends up like demons start escaping from hell and stuff, and then Ash has to send them back. Ash ends up cutting his hand off and putting a chainsaw on it, and he has a shotgun. This is a dark comedy show. The movie, when it first came out in the 80s or the late 70s, I think, was relying on it to be a horror film, a horror film, and it just developed into a dark comedy, and it was actually pretty funny after that. So Bruce Campbell's considered like that B-rated movie star, and he plays it well. He plays it really well. The show is really funny, well written. I really like the ending of the show. I really like the whole season this season. And I can't wait for season 3. Season 3 is coming up here soon. It'll be here around, during Halloween and stuff when The Walking Dead comes back on again. But highly recommend if you're looking for a comedy show. I highly recommend Ash vs. Evil Dead season 2. All right. So, most disappointing shows. Okay, so I haven't watched any new shows that I've been disappointed with. I actually like the ones that I've been watching. The shows that have returned that I'm pretty disappointed in, I'd have to say The Walking Dead. Now, the first episode of the returning Walking Dead was actually really good. I like Negan. It's just, it's not like great. I just got bored. I get bored of it, like how the dialogue set up and how they were setting up Negan the whole time. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays a great Negan. It's just it's kind of boring for the last couple episodes. That and Walking Dead suffers from something that's also fear, as um it's more fearing of like uh, filler. Like the show suffers from filler episodes where they have to like, they'll show Rick and like, Maggie, and they'll be like doing something important, and then something will happen, and Negan shows up, and the next episode is Morgan and Carol at the kingdom with Ezekiel, and you're like, this is boring. I wanted to see Rick and what happened to Maggie and Negan. Why are you showing me this? Why can't you just show me a little bit of this? Why does the whole episode have to be about the kingdom? So it suffers from that a lot. Another returning show that I was pretty disappointed in, I would have to say, I hate to say this, but Daredevil season 2. Now it's not terrible. Like I'm not gonna say it's terrible, but it was one of the most disappointing. It was good. It's just it wasn't great. Like it wasn't to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Like the first season. What I did really like from the second season was we finally got to get our Frank Castle, Josh Brotherton. I think that's his name. He played Shane off The Walking Dead. He plays a great Frank Castle Punisher. Elektra was part of this, and it was an overall good season, but I just didn't think it was that great. But overall, those were the only disappointing shows. I also forgot about 2 newer shows that I really liked was Luke Cage. Luke Cage is a Marvel. It's part of the Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and Luke Cage in the Defender series that's coming up. It's part of that in Iron Fist. He's a character from there. And also, I'd have to say for returning seasons again, I would have to say Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones season 7. I think it was season 7. No, season 6 was really good. It was phenomenal. Excited for season 7 to come out. But moving on past that, I would have to say favorite artists this year. So I'm talking about like artists that have really, really got me into listening to their music. I would have to say number 1 is probably The Weeknd. The Weeknd kind of just, grew on me a little bit. It was just really shocking how great that how great it was, actually, how good of a artist he is. Next to some of the songs. But I listen to his songs a lot now. Like I'm listening to him constantly. Next to probably Chainsmokers, Closer. The song just gets stuck in my head, and then I just keep watching it. But past that, let's go to best video game this year. I would have to say the best video game I've played this year has to probably be. Um, Let me think. I'm really trying to think about this. I don't know if it came out this year. I don't think it came out this year. I could be wrong. No, it didn't come out this year. Okay, so the best video game I played this year that has came out, I would have to say is probably Doom. Doom, I'm really surprised at how Doom worked out. Doom was actually a really, really good, surprising, thing that just came out of nowhere and surprised the hell out of me. It's kind of like Firewatch. Firewatch was really surprising. It's a walking adventure game. You're not going to probably play it more than once or maybe twice, like I did. But it's really well written, really good story. Had fun with it. Um, now, um, I really didn't play too much on it this year because most of the time I was playing like Smite and a couple other things. But those were the two that stood out the most for me. Probably, Super Hot was really good. Um, and let's see, what else? I think that's it. That's all I played this year that I really, really thought was a good thing. I played the Battlefield 1 beta. That wasn't too bad. But, it's Battlefield, in my opinion. Worst video games this year. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the worst video games I played this year probably has to be No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky just was very disappointing. I was expecting a lot more from this, and it just didn't deliver. Kind of just bored me to death. I thought it was going to be a lot better than what it was, and it wasn't. It was actually really boring, and there was a lot of promises that were supposed to be met for that game, and it actually fell flat on its ass. So I really didn't like No Man's Sky. Uh, Probably other games that I played that really weren't that great. Mirror's Edge really wasn't that great. Um, I'm going to say actually Hitman was terrible. Didn't like Hitman. Um, and probably Overwatch. I didn't like Overwatch. A lot of people are like, "Oh, what about Overwatch?" Well, Overwatch is kind of, in my opinion, I played Team Fortress, so it kind of felt like a ripoff. So it kind of felt like that. Just people like it more. So if you like Overwatch, great. That's great. But I just didn't think it was that great of a great of a video game, in my opinion. Um, and probably Call of Duty Infinite Warfare was garbage. The only reason they ever sold units for that is probably, in my reality, that um, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 was remastered on to Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, but it was $80 just to get it. The only way you could get the remaster edition with a multiplayer, you'd have to buy Infinite Warfare. That's the only reason it became top sales. But overall, those were pretty much the games that I liked and disliked. Okay, so the best Netflix show or movie, I would have to say the best show on Netflix right now is probably that showed up is probably Luke Cage. Luke Cage was really good this year. I'm not going to deny that. It was really well put together. It was new to the scene and it was great. I was excited for it. I watched it all the way through and I really liked it. Was it as good as Daredevil season 1 or Jessica Jones? No, but it was good. Uh, Best movie of Netflix, I would have to say is I don't really have a good movie that Netflix has really done by themselves. Um, so I'm gonna kind of skip that. I really, really don't know. Um, Now this will bring me to the end of the segment tonight, but it's deaths. So uh, the thing is lately there's been a lot of deaths going on, and a lot of celebrities have died. Um, this year's list has just been terrible. There's just been some terrible, terrible, like, celebrities that have suffered from cancer or heart attack or anything like that, and they suffered from that, and it just it really hurt us a lot because this year a lot of celebrities left. That they they are at the other side. So some of the people that I'm gonna miss is probably one of my favorite artists is David Bowie. David Bowie is probably gonna be missed. I fell in love with David Bowie when I played Guitar Hero. He did in Guitar Hero Ziggy Stardust, and later on Rebel and a whole bunch of other ones. And the really sad thing about David Bowie's death, excuse me, is actually he did a music video called Lazarus. It was the last music video he did, but it was a music video telling his fans that he's fine with his death and he's moving on and he's inspired that he's dying. So it's kind of sad, but if you want to watch it, it's called Lazarus. The next one, sorry, I got kind of a cough. Hold on. Excuse me. Is Alan Rickman. Alan Rickman, man, that was so surprising. Okay, so Alan Rickman played in movies like Die Hard, Harry Potter, he played Professor Snape. In Die Hard, he played Hans Gruber. And a couple other films. I really liked him in Dogma. He was a British actor. He died at 69. He was 69 years old, so he died. I think he died of cancer the same way that David Bowie did. Bowie. So, another one is Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard was a really good artist. I really enjoyed his guitar playing and most of his music. It was rough. Abe Vigoda, I forget if that's how you pronounce his name, but he was actually played Sal in The Godfather. I was really surprised that he's lived this long. I thought he was actually dead, but he died at 94. Who else? David Muir died. Dave Muir. He a legendary BMX biker. He died. I forget how he died though. Here, let me look this up. A self-inflicted gunshot wound. Wow. Okay, so that's depressing. Moving on. John Glenn. John Glenn is one of those people that died. John Glenn was one of the, was a very popular astronaut. If you didn't know who John Glenn was, you should really look him up. I thought, John Glenn was, a very historical person. So, really, really hurt about that. I would have to say also too is, let me look up some more. I kind of want to say some other people, but the thing is like I kind of want to leave them for the the last of it, because those were very, very influential people. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Gary Shalin. Gary Shalin was a comedian. He was on like a lot of movies that I've seen and also TV shows. So I don't really remember him too much in any shows. I just know his face. Oh, Eric Burnsfield. He played Admiral Akbar in Star Wars. He died. Admiral Akbar was famous for "It's a trap." So, I would really look into that. Doris Roberts. Oh wow, I forgot. Okay, so Doris Roberts. I love Doris Roberts. She played in Everybody Loves Raymond, and she was also in the film Grandma's Boy. She played Grandma. And man, she was so funny in that film, and she was really, really a good actress. And Everybody Loves Raymond, always made me laugh. Another one, China. China was a wrestler slash bodybuilder, and she died, I think, of a drug overdose. I don't remember, but they found her. Okay, it doesn't look like. Oh wow, she died of natural causes. Okay, so supposedly she died of natural causes. Um, but it was kind of surprising because China was one of those female wrestlers I grew up with, and she was only 46. So she died pretty early. It's kind of like Prince. Prince is also there too. Prince was an artist, he kind of died early a lot. He did like he was a good artist. He did like songs like "When Doves Cry" and "Purple Rain" and "Little Red Corvette." Really amazing guitar player. Uh, Michelle McNairn. Oh man. Okay, so the she's married to Pat Oswald. Pat Oswald is a really funny comedian. Um, I was really shocked about this, but the thing was you know it was just really depressing because Oswald is such a great person, and sometimes people don't deserve that, and he didn't deserve that one bit. But she died, and my condolences go out to him completely. He's one of my he's the funniest comedian around nowadays, I think, in my opinion. um Guy Clark died too. I forgot Guy Clark. Guy Clark was a really good Texas singer songwriter. He played a lot of good, like country guitar, like L.A. Freeway and Desperados. Waiting on a Train with Willie Nelson. It's a really really good song. Um, also too, a big one, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, man, he was the biggest boxer. I have to say he goes down next to Mike Tyson as like one of the best boxers ever, the greatest in my opinion. He always had the quote, "Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee." I'm the greatest ever was. I'm Muhammad Ali, and he proved it too. So, Muhammad Ali, you know, really good. Kimbo Slice, Kimbo Slice. I was in the whole UFC thing. I think every guy was later on, where they were like, "Oh wow, I got to watch UFC." And at that time, Kimbo Slice was, brought into that. But um, he was. I think he was discovered by an internet video, and then brought in the UFC, and then he became popular. But he died this year too. Um, who also died? Oh, that was a tragic. The Christine Gimme. She was the YouTuber, and she was popular on The Voice. She got gunned down at her concert, which was, just a terrible, terrible thing. Ron Lester, man, you know what? I thought, man, he would be gone for a while there, but like, he held on. But Ron Lester plays Billy Bob in Varsity Blues. So it was kind of a shock when he died too. I was like, wow, this is the biggest shock actually. I think this year is next to the number one shock in my opinion is Antonio Anton Yekchin. I think that's his name. He played Chekhov in the Star Trek films. He also was in Charlie Bartlett, Igby Goes Down, and I'm trying to think. He was in so many good movies that were independent films that I really, really liked him in. But it's tragic how he died. I think it was an accident with his Jeep Cherokee or something, where the emergency brake didn't go up or something, and they came rolling down a hill and crushed him. So, he was only 27, so he died pretty young. Uh, and I would have to say also, too, who's on that list is probably, let's see, let's go down here a little bit more. I'm just going to make sure I can pick out the ones that I know that are going to affect me. Wow, she died too. Miss Chloe died. Well, Miss Chloe, if you don't know who Miss Chloe is, Miss Chloe was um, uh, she was a tarot card reader. Like, she was like an infomercial back in the 90s where she'd be like, "I read your fortune, man." She was all Jamaican and stuff. And callers, and she'd tell the future of the callers with the telecards. Um, Also, too, um, oh wow, yeah, Kenny Baker died. Kenny Baker, who played the lovable droid for 2D2, the Star Wars film. He was, he died at 81, so he lived a long life. He died in August. Um, but that's how it is. Let's see, who else is there? Ooh, I know him. Nope, no, I don't. Oh wow, yeah, Gene Wilder. Man, Gene Wilder, man. Okay, so Gene Wilder is one of the best comedic actors of all time. He did like show movies like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles, and See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Uh, he was really, really good. If you really want to know who Gene Hackman is, and like, I mean, Gene Wilder. Wow, Gene Hackman, wrong person. Oh, hope it. Gene Wilder. If you really want to know one of his good movies to watch, I would have to recommend probably Young Frankenstein or Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He does a song called Pure Imagination. If you want to look that up on YouTube, it's fantastic. Uh, I would also have to say in that category is let me look down some more. Oh, there was a lot of people that people knew. Oh, Jose Fernandez. Man, he died 24. I think he died in a boating accident. He played for the Miami Marlins. He was a pitcher. Arnold Palmer, famous golf guy, he died too. Um, he was one of the biggest. Oh wow, I didn't know that. Steve Dillon died, 54, a celebrated comic book artist, best known for co-creating The Preacher. So we were just talking about The Preacher, and he illustrated the popular Marvel title, The Punisher. So, you know, very big names here, guys. Uh, I would have to say, oh wow, yeah. Um, let's see who else. I'm gonna be ending this soon, so I want to make sure that I got all the people. Oh wow, yeah, Fidel Castro was a big person that died this year too. Fidel was the dictator of Cuba and very influential for Cuba's future and futures. I mean, past of Cuba and during the Cuban Missile Crisis is like where Fidel is. If you ever look that up, Kennedy and the Missile Crisis, you'll know who Fidel Castro is. Or Seinfeld, if you watch Seinfeld. George Michaels, man, George Michaels died. Um, he died. He was in. He was a good artist. He did like Careless Whisper and what's that other? Into my heart. Jitterbug. Um, but he died, and also uh, he became very popular because of Deadpool, the movie. Ryan Reynolds talks about that. Oh man, Carrie Fisher. So Carrie Fisher just died actually a couple days ago. Carrie Fisher played Princess Leia in the Star Wars films. It was a big shot. She went into cardiac arrest on a plane, and some people did some CPR. She was fine, and then a couple days later, they said she died. Um, it's just unfortunate. She was a big part of my childhood growing up, Star Wars. And then her mom died, like yesterday. Kind of sad. It was just um, one day after she died, her daughter died. Debbie Reynolds died. That's Carrie Fisher's mom, and that's her daughter. Carrie Fisher was her daughter. So it was a rough year, and I think the biggest impact one was probably Carrie Fisher, in my opinion. I thought Carrie Fisher was a big, huge impact on this year. And also, too, I think another big impact is, a lot of people joke about this, but it's Harambe. Harambe was the gorilla that got killed at the Cincinnati Zoo. But he was a huge impact because a lot of people are taking it serious now. Um, but this year has just been crazy. 2016 will go down as one of the most craziest years this year. I just don't get it. The biggest, craziest thing is Donald Trump is president now. So we'll see how the world goes in 2017 for, the 4 year season. We'll figure that out. But overall, 2016 was all right. We got some good films. We got some great video games that came out. And we also had some great things happen in 2016. And I just look at it as we're going to move forward and this is how we're going to be. And I just want to say Happy New Year's to everyone and thank you for watching. Tell me, what movie or TV show you really liked, or what was the worst film you thought, or the worst movie, or the worst video game you played, or the biggest death that impacted you. Just put it down in the comments. And, I'll bring it up in my next video. Also, like and subscribe to this channel, Classy Nerd Talk. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for subscribing.